Hello friends, welcome to LeggLife. And you guys, since we got home from our Star Wars Day at Sea cruise, there's one question that so many of you guys have messaged us and asked. And that's Adam and Sherri. Now that you guys have done a Marvel Day at Sea and a Star Wars Day at Sea, which one was better? And so today, we're gonna answer that question.
So I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt, Adam has his Marvel shirt. Clearly we are ready for this video.
And right from the beginning, we're just gonna jump into the important question, which did we like more? Because I think the reality is that as we go through each aspect of Marvel Day at Sea and Star Wars Day at Sea, it's gonna become very clear very quickly that we have one that we liked much, much more. So we're just gonna start there.
And just kind of a quick disclaimer, I think we are kind of equal fans of both. We were joking, we are t-shirt fans, and what that means is we own the t-shirts and we have seen all of the movies, but we haven't really dug down into like backstories of everything. We haven't read every comic book. We don't really know all of that like sub-level stuff.
Yeah, we're like surface level fans of both. And I would say, Sherri, tell me if you agree with this, we are as much fans of Star Wars as we are Marvel. Like they're really neck and neck for both of us.
Right, I would agree.
So as far as like fandom, one of those for us doesn't really have the edge.
No. But when it came to the cruises, one of them definitely does have the edge for us.
You guys, we liked Marvel Day at Sea so much more.
So much more.
Like a shockingly amount more.
Yeah, like an unfortunate amount.
And I don't know why. We're gonna talk, well, I have a lot of ideas why. And we're gonna talk about that in the video. We're gonna go through different aspects of the cruise, tell you our thoughts on them. But honestly, and we've talked a lot about this. We've talked a lot about this on the ship. We've talked a lot about it since we've been home. And we definitely, in fact, the more we think about it, the more kind of solid we are in our belief that we loved Marvel way beyond what we loved Star Wars.
Now that does not mean that Star Wars Day at Sea was a bad day or a bad experience. I would 100% do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
We enjoyed it.
Yep.
I think that there's just so many things about the Marvel Day that just bumps it up to the next level for us.
Yeah, to us, the Marvel Day at Sea, you guys might remember this after our Marvel Day at Sea cruise last year, we said it was the single best day we've ever had on a Disney cruise.
And that holds true.
And that totally holds true. In fact, we went into the Star Wars Day at Sea expecting that level.
Right.
And so it wasn't the Star Wars Day at Sea was bad, it just wasn't that level.
Right. We're just going to go ahead and start with arguably one of the most important parts of any Disney cruise, the characters.
And honestly, this may have been the area where we noticed the biggest difference. Certainly one of them at least.
Yeah.
So on Marvel Day at Sea, one of the things that was the most amazing to us was how characters were everywhere.
All over the ship. Everywhere you looked.
Oh my gosh. And in different parts of the ship, and they would like interact with you. And there were so many, it was almost at times overwhelming to stop and look around and to see like 3 or 4 characters within like your view, and you could just like go up and interact with them. Like
I'm trying to learn how to draw Iron Man and Star-Lord's walking around and I'm just like, what do I do?
Yeah, it was amazing. The characters were everywhere.
All over, yeah.
And so we go into Star Wars Day at Sea thinking like, oh man, we're gonna see like Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, and like Rey's gonna be walking by, and there's Chewie, and there's, you know what I mean? So we're expecting that kind of experience. And we just didn't get that.
No. So both did have ticketed meet and greets. I think on the Marvel we did Groot, we did Iron Man and Black Panther and Spider-Man. Those 3 were kind of all together. I don't remember who else we did. But on the Star Wars we had Darth Vader, we had C-3PO and R2-D2, and we had Chewie.
So I felt like the ticketed meet and greets to me were comparable.
Right, yeah.
Like as far as what
great characters.
As far as what ticketed goes, great. Had good experiences on both. Those, I would say a tie.
Right, yeah.
But it was all of the other ones. In fact, on Star Wars Day at Sea, I can only think of, there were like Stormtroopers, there were Jawas, there was that kind of it?
Yeah,
like a few
guys from
other,
like the Empire kind of walking around, but like not really. There weren't like characters all over the place.
It was weird because we expected that.
Right.
Now, should we have expected that? I don't know.
Maybe not.
But Marvel Day at Sea set that bar.
Right.
And one thing to consider, and we have talked about this, is the reality is that Marvel characters are just more fun.
Right. They just lend themselves to be more interactive.
Right. And so, yeah, exactly. So you're thinking of the Guardians of the Galaxy and there's like 80s music, dance parties. Like, how fun is that? Right. There's nothing like that in Star Wars.
Right.
So I will say the characters and the Marvel Universe lends itself to a more fun experience. And it definitely came across as more fun on Marvel Day at Sea.
Yeah, but I do think that the Star Wars, like there's just as many characters that are beloved in the Star Wars universe, and we just didn't see any of them.
Yeah, and we'll touch on this a little bit later when we talk about like the deck show they have in the evening. On the deck show, there were a lot of characters out.
Sure.
A lot of Star Wars characters out. I'm like, where were those during the day? Like,
Oh, so you do have the costumes.
yeah, exactly. I was like, did somebody leave like a container with like all the costumes? Because they're not here. So that to me, the characters to me, Sherri, I think was one of the biggest disappointments.
For sure, yeah.
Because
I was really expecting to be able to be like, let's take pictures of people walking the halls. I'll stand in line and take a picture with Leia. Like, I will do it.
Yeah.
They just didn't. They just weren't there.
None of that.
So now we're going to actually dive into the themed activities that occurred on each of the days at sea.
And here's one thing I do want to say. Remember, we did Marvel Day at Sea last year. We did Star Wars Day at Sea this year. So things do change from year to year.
Right.
And I have heard from people, I talked to people on this ship actually, who have done past Star Wars Day at Seas, who said that this year was more lacking than past years. So that is something to keep in mind. But one of the things that was disappointing to me again about Star Wars Day at Sea, so on Marvel Day at Sea, they had somebody from Marvel who did like talks in the theater and sort of behind the scenes, like the Marvel process. That was awesome. Fascinating.
Right.
And so I go in and I'm like, oh man, who are they going to have from like Star Wars? Who's going to like do these talks? And then there's nothing like that. On Marvel Day at Sea, one of the things you could do is they had iPads in one of the lounges that had like almost every Marvel comic book on them. You could just go in there and like flip through it. I'm like, oh, that'll be fun.
That's so cool.
Nothing like that. In fact, the Star Wars themed activities all felt like regular Disney cruise activities, but with a Star Wars twist.
Right. Yeah, like they did, the Star Wars drawing class, and they did like the 3D character paper things.
Yep, they did like Star Wars like trivia, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it felt like they had Star Wars versions of things they have already on the Disney cruise, which is cool.
Yeah, I will say, so like one of the first things we did in the morning was like the coloring. It was just like come in and color a page. And they had all of the princesses, they had all of the Fab Five, they had some Marvel, they had no Star Wars.
Now, one thing to keep in mind about that...
It wasn't actually a Star Wars event.
Yeah, it wasn't one of the themed Star Wars events.
But I'm also just thinking, I'm dressed up for my Star Wars stuff, and I want to color a Star Wars character.
Yeah, you don't have a copier somewhere where you can print off 50, like 50 Chewie?
I can color Iron Man, but I can't color Chewie?
That was kind of weird.
It was just sort of weird.
But that is something I will say to touch on, because we get this question a lot, is on these Star Wars and Marvel days, what if you're not a Star Wars fan or a Marvel fan? There are things to do that are not themed, those things. Right? So like the coloring, there was no Star Wars to be seen anywhere in there.
Right, and actually even the drawing class was Minnie Mouse, but then we had extra time, so he showed us how to draw Baby Yoda. But they did have like specific Star Wars character drawing classes. I just didn't make it to any of them. Yeah,
so to me, what Star Wars Day at Sea lacked were some of the extra kind of things, like the talks, like the, the comic books, that kind of stuff. I don't know, it just felt, it felt lacking. And that to me was so confusing because to me, Star Wars is such an iconic franchise. Right? I mean, it's Star Wars.
And it's huge.
Right? And so it's like, you've got to have things to make this day feel special. And I think that, even just saying that word, that's, to me, was one of the difference. Star Wars Day at Sea didn't feel as special as I felt like Star Wars Day at Sea should have.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let's talk about food, as you should, about any cruise.
Yeah, for sure. Every review video we do for anything Disney Cruise, we always have a food section because it's such a big deal on the ship. And one of the things they do on Marvel Day at Sea and Star Wars Day at Sea is there's lots of themed food around the ship. There's lots of themed food. Obviously at dinner, there's a special menu. To me, I didn't notice a real difference between the quality of food, the theming of the food. You had mentioned, though, you felt like the dinner menu was a little confusing on Star Wars Day at Sea.
It was, like, not just, like, the names were trying to be, like, very Star Wars-ish, but I do feel like, as just Surface fans, I had no idea what any of them meant.
Yeah, so that was a confusing experience for you.
Yeah.
As far as quality of food, though, to me, a wash.
Quality was great,
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was that Marvel Day at Sea food was better than Star Wars Day at Sea. To me, both of them were Disney Cruise quality foods.
We're going to move on to the deck show, which I feel like was another huge difference between the two.
This was huge. So both of them kind of end their day with a deck show up on the pool deck with fireworks, right? Both of them do that. And so Marvel Day at Sea was super immersive. There was like a storyline. It felt like the
whole day was a storyline leading up to the deck show.
Actually, that was a big difference, and we haven't really talked about this, is that even the announcements around the ship, so on Star Wars Day at Sea, the announcements were just like, we've heard that they're Jawas and they're trading. It was all kind of focused on that kind of stuff. Whereas on Marvel Day at Sea, it was like Tony Stark being like, has anybody seen Hulk? Like, they were all really funny.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious, but it's leading up to this storyline, this story arc that they built throughout the day, that then we like get the conclusion of on the deck show.
Right.
So to me, the Marvel deck show was way better.
It was so funny.
The Star Wars, here's what I say. Okay, the Star Wars, here we go. You guys ready? Sherri doesn't know what I'm going to say. She's really concerned. The Star Wars deck show, to me, was kind of sentimental. It was a little like emotional because it played into like the history of Star Wars, which is maybe what you want, right?
Yeah.
To me, the Marvel deck show was like we were watching a Broadway, and maybe that's the wrong word. It was like we were watching a production unfold before us.
Right.
Whereas the Star Wars one, there was only a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I do feel like the Star Wars deck show was confusing. I had no idea what was happening the whole time, and then there were fireworks, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was not a continual story.
It was just, I don't know, it was just confusing to me. The fireworks were still great, they're always great.
Yep.
But I felt like the fireworks in the Marvel show actually had to do with the Marvel show. And they started off with like Iron Man shooting out and like he's gonna shoot down these drones, and they were the fireworks. And like it was, I don't know, it was all like
the fireworks were
in.
a part of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, this confusing show is done and now there's fireworks. So like that was in the Star Wars Daisy. It was just confusing to me. I don't know. Maybe somebody else got it and you can explain it to me, but I didn't get it. Did you understand it?
Here's what I will say. If I was like a next level Star Wars nerd, and I mean I mean that term as a compliment. Right. That is not derogatory. Well done. I think I would have understood it more. But as like a surface level Star Wars fan, I was like, okay, like I recognized some of those clips, like this was cool, this was fun, but like I didn't connect to it. Whereas the Marvel show, because it was like a narrative, because it was like a story, I felt like everybody, no matter what your connection to Marvel was, would have enjoyed that show.
Right, I think so.
So to me, that was a huge, I think that to me, honestly, the two biggest areas of difference were the amount of characters around the ship and then the deck shows. Yeah. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree, yeah.
So you guys, honestly for us, it was, I don't know, Marvel hands down.
Like not even a close comparison, I feel like.
Here's what we said, and I think that this sums it up really well. We would book a Marvel Day at Sea cruise again, specifically for Marvel Day at Sea.
Yes.
If we happened to book a Star Wars Day at Sea cruise, like if that Star Wars Day at Sea was happening on a cruise that we loved the itinerary or we wanted to go back on the fantasy, cool. We're not going to be mad about that.
But we're probably not going to specifically book a Star Wars Day at Sea cruise.
Yep.
Again.
Completely. Marvel, I would in a second.
Yeah.
It was so good. We actually really want to hear from you guys. If you've done both Marvel Day at Sea and Star Wars Day at Sea, let us know in the comments below. Because again, this was our experience.
Right.
Right? And we know that some of you may have cruised and have different experience and different thoughts. And so we want to hear down below. So if you thought Star Wars Day at Sea was better than Marvel Day at Sea, give us your reason down below.
Yeah,
like this is your chance to give a rebuttal to our argument. We want to hear from you guys. As always, you guys know we love you. Yep. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of our LeggLife community, and we'll see you guys on the next LeggLife video.